DLA Distribution teammates, I'd like to take some time to talk with you about African American History Month. Every February we celebrate African Americans and recognize their many contributions. I'd like to tell you about only a few of these outstanding citizens. There are too many to mention in this video. African Americans have shouldered an enormous share of the burden of battle in every American military engagement, donning our nation's military uniforms to answer the call of duty. From the early days of the American Revolution to present-day missions around the world, African Americans have and are honorably serving to defend this great nation. We remember soldiers like Sergeant Henry Johnson of the Harlem Hellfighters, the all-black National Guard unit that was among the first American forces to arrive in France during World War I. Sergeant Johnson suffered 21 wounds during frontline combat and received France's highest award for valor. To acknowledge his exceeding bravery, he was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and a Purple Heart. We remember pilot Benjamin Davis Jr., who commanded the famed Tuskegee Airmen and became the first African-American general in the United States Air Force. We remember soldiers like Major Charity Adams Early, who was the commander of the only all-African-American Women's Army Corps unit that served overseas during World War II. She was a trailblazer in her efforts to recruit more women to the military service in spite of rampant racism and segregation. Marine Colonel Adele Hodges was the first African-American woman to command Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Colonel Hodges oversaw more than 47,000 Marines and sailors. She headed up new training, improved infrastructure, and enhanced security. Air Force Colonel Guion Bluford Jr. went from Air Force pilot to astronaut. After flying combat missions over Vietnam as a U.S. Air Force pilot, he went on to become one of America's first black astronauts. He flew 144 combat missions, 65 over North Vietnam, as a member of the 557th Tactical Fighter Squadron at Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam. Appointed by President Bill Clinton, Lillian E. Fishburne became the first African-American woman to hold the rank of Navy Rear Admiral. And on July 1st, 2014, Rear Admiral Michelle Howard became the first woman to become a U.S. Navy 4-star admiral as Vice Chief of Naval Operations, which she began that same day. She was the first African-American and first woman to hold that position. Admiral Howard also became the first woman 4-star admiral to command operational forces when she assumed command of U.S. Naval Forces Europe and U.S. Naval Forces Africa. We honor General Colin Powell, who served 35 years in the U.S. Army, rising to the rank of 4-star general, ultimately becoming the first African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He went on to become the 65th United States Secretary of State, serving under President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2005, the first African-American to serve in that position. These and countless other African Americans triumphed over ignorance, oppression, and injustice to make indelible contributions not only to our military history, but even more importantly, to our American history. They are an integral part of our nation's story. We are indebted to the individual and collective perseverance and patriotism of these outstanding men and women, as we are to all African Americans who have served and continue to serve in the armed forces of this great nation. There are so many others to recognize, and behind every name there is a story that illustrates and reveals the impact African Americans in uniform have on our armed services and on diversity and inclusion in our national culture. Each individual represents a proud moment for our nation, giving inspiration to all people of diverse backgrounds. For more information on National African American History Month, please contact your local Equal Employment Opportunity Office. Ms. Gonzalez and I want to thank you for the exceptional work you continue to do for our customers around the globe. The distribution workforce is unquestionably second to none. Hoo-yah, distribution.